You know, Barack Obama hasn't been president for a long, long time now, and yet you still hear his name all the time. He gets blamed for today's economy, our political divisions, even the culture wars. It's like this political ghost story, right? This persistent obsession that just won't go away.
So what is really going on here? Why does he still live, rent-free, in so many heads? Well, the source material we're looking at today digs right into that question, and it describes it as something kind of unsettling, almost like a haunting. It feels really personal, super intense, and the craziest part? It doesn't seem to be fading with time at all.
And here is where things get really, really interesting. See, the source material we're pulling from argues that if you're looking for the answer in policy debates or political talking points, you're looking in completely the wrong place. The real explanation is psychological. We are about to pull back the curtain and show you the deep-seated triggers that are really fueling all this.
Okay, so here's the plan. We're going to break this all down into 4 specific psychological triggers. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to see why for some people, Obama's presidency wasn't just some political shift. No, it was an event that literally shattered their entire understanding of the world.
All right, let's jump right into our first trigger, shattered status. So this first idea, it's all about a very specific kind of social standing. And it's not the kind you earn, it's the kind you feel you're just given.
Way back in 1935, the brilliant sociologist W.E.B. Du Bois came up with the term the psychological wage. Think of it like a social safety net, but for your status. Basically, it's this unearned sense of public standing that tells a dominant group, hey, no matter how bad things get for you, you can never ever fall beneath this point. It's like having a guaranteed floor for your social status.
So what does this have to do with Obama? Well, think about it. When he was elected, he didn't just win a political race. He took the single highest status position in the entire country. For anyone who was leaning on that psychological wage, his very presence in the White House just shattered that status floor. And what our source argues is that when that floor breaks, people don't just get quietly disappointed. No, they lash out. It feels like something deeply personal, something that was theirs, was stolen from them.
Okay, so his election was just the start of it. Trigger number 2 wasn't just about him winning. It was about how he actually performed in the job. And that's where we get to what's called the outsider threat. To get this, let's use a sports analogy. Imagine your favorite team has that one rival you just can't stand. Now, what if a player from that rival team isn't just good, but they become the league MVP, the best of the best? What's the reaction from your fellow fans going to be? Probably not admiration, right? It's going to be pure rage. That is social identity threat. When a successful outsider challenges an in-group's perceived superiority, the reaction is often hostility.
Yeah, and this slide really lays out that exact conflict. On one hand, you had the reality, a polished, competent president who was respected by leaders all over the world. But for some people, that image was a direct contradiction to a deep belief that he was supposed to be inferior. So what happened? The result wasn't inspiration. It was rage. His success wasn't seen as a win for the country, it was processed as a personal attack.
So let's recap. We've got 2 key ingredients brewing here, a sense of stolen status and this deep-seated rage. But all that powerful emotion, it needs a target. And that brings us to trigger number 3, the designated villain.
The psychological tool they used here is as old as time itself, scapegoating. You know, it's this incredibly powerful shortcut. It takes all the complicated, messy, confusing problems in the world, all that anxiety floating around, and it channels everything onto one single identifiable person or group. And just like that, a chaotic world starts to feel simple.
So how do you create a villain like that? Well, there's a playbook. Step 1, you strip them of their humanity. Think about the birther conspiracy, for example. At its core, that was all about labeling him as an outsider, as not one of us. Step 2, you make him the source of all the problems. The economy is struggling, it's Obama's fault. Crime rates, Obama's fault. It turns this messy, complicated world into a super simple story. There's a monster, and he is the single cause of all your pain.
Okay, but wait, that all happened while he was president. He's been out of office for years now, so why on earth does the obsession continue with such intensity? Well, our 4th and final trigger, doubling down, explains the incredible psychological glue that holds this whole thing together.
The answer is something called cognitive dissonance. It's a really powerful phenomenon.
A psychologist named Leon Festinger discovered something fascinating about our brains. When we're faced with facts or evidence that flat out contradict a belief we hold really, really deeply, it creates this intense mental stress. And you'd think, logically, to get rid of that stress, we'd just change our belief to match the facts. But that's not what usually happens. In fact, we often do the exact opposite. We double down on our original belief, even harder than before. And this slide right here shows you the exact pressure point of that conflict. So on the left, you've got reality, the facts, the historical record of a competent, largely scandal-free presidency. And on the right, you have the belief, the villain that's been constructed. For someone who believes the villain story, those two ideas just can't exist in their head at the same time. It creates this unbearable psychological pressure, almost like a vice tightening on their mind.
So here's the absolute crucial point. Since the actual evidence didn't support their belief, the only way to get rid of that painful dissonance was to reject the evidence entirely and just intensify the belief. They had to hate him harder. Think about it. To stop obsessing, to just let it go, would mean they'd have to admit that their entire worldview, everything they've believed and argued for over a decade, was just wrong.
And this right here brings us to the really powerful central idea of the source material we're covering. That this obsession, when you get right down to it, isn't really about Barack Obama at all. It's an external fight that's just a reflection of a deep internal one, a fight against their own sense of inadequacy in a world that's changing around them. It's an identity crisis playing out on a massive national stage.
Okay, so we've walked through all 4 triggers. But what's the big takeaway here? Why does understanding all this psychological stuff matter right now? Well, it's because this isn't just some history lesson. What we've just described is what our source calls a cheat code for understanding the world we live in today.
This 4-part framework, shattered status, the outsider threat, scapegoating, and then doubling down with cognitive dissonance, it's like a cheat code for navigating modern media. Once you know what to look for, you start seeing these hidden psychological patterns driving so much of what we see and hear every day. And you realize, wow, it was never just about Obama. This is a playbook, and it gets used over and over and over again.
And so that leaves us with one final question, and this one's for you. Now that you know this 4-part pattern, where else do you see it playing out? Seriously, look for it. Look for it in politics, in media stories, even in online arguments. Because once you see the code, you really do start seeing it everywhere. And that changes how you see, well, pretty much everything.